Hey, welcome back to the Man Cave Workshop again. Thanks for joining again. Really appreciate it. So, reading through the comments of the initial look at this Roberts R303, a few of you, quite rightly, Cody's, who donated the set to the Man Cave, sort of rightly said, while it's out, we might as well service it by having a look at these capacitors, lifting a leg and testing them. To be honest, once they're out, once you've lifted a leg, you might as well take them out and change them if they're well out of spec, which you quite rightly said, guys. These probably are. They're the old electrolytic capacitors. They probably dried up, gone leaky. So yeah, why not while it's out? I've got a bunch of replacement ones here. Luckily I had all the values in stock within sort of 10% range. You always go a little bit higher on the UF rather than lower, and slight. I think you can go a bit lower on UF, but you always go higher on the voltage. Never lower on the voltage. So let's let me pause the video. We'll there's quite a few 200s in here. This one, this one, this one, and this one. I got 220s to go in there. Now these are the upright ones, and I'm hoping that they clear underneath this ferrite rod here. What we'll do, because the speaker's soldered on, we'll get rid of that first by taking it off. By the way, I don't know if I said in the last video, when I pull the speaker off, it's no dust bunnies in it. Absolutely clean as a whistle, this speaker. Really unusual to see. So let's heat up these connections to the speaker. Okay, let's get them off. I'm using an Antex vintage soldering iron, and I find it's quite a good weapon of choice, really. I first started out off doing these. I used a very cheap soldering iron, and it's not worth the bother. Once you've used a decent iron, you tend to not want to go back. So rather than, what should I do here? There's 1,000,001 videos out about recapping radios. What I'll do, I'll off camera, I'll pull this first one out. A few things to know when you're soldering, if you're fairly new like me, is if you need a solder sucker to get the old solder off. If you struggle, always add a little bit of solder to it. It seems to make the heat transfer go a lot better, much easier to get off. Watch out touching wires with the soldering iron like these that are flapping about around the place, and try to heat up the work rather than the solder and get a nice flow going. If you need to use flux, if it's not sticking, then fair play. Just use an electrical flux like this. If you don't, then don't. Afterwards, always clean it off with isopropanol, and rather than white spirit, because white spirit will leave a bit of residue on the board, whereas isopropanol won't. That's about it, really. I'll pull this first 200 one out that's underneath this ferrite rod, so we'll move that out of the way a little bit, give us some space. Quite an easy set to work on again, guys. Gives you plenty of space. I'll pull this one out and we'll stick it on the meter. See what this meter makes of it. Okay. So I'll pause the video now. You know how to do this. If you don't, if you're unsure on changing electrolytic capacitors, just look it up. There's loads of stuff out there. So there we are. First capacitor out. Couple of things to note is that the board on the Roberts aren't marked for the positive and negative, so I just put a little with a Sharpie pen, just put a little mark on the negative side, and I know which way the negative one of the new capacitor goes in. The back of the board, there's quite a few wires around this, like we said, so I've taped the speaker wires out of the way. And also a good thing to do, just in case one of these wires lifts or anything, is just to take a few pictures on your phone of the board, just in case. Then you know how everything goes back together correctly. So this one's 200 UF. Let's stick it on the meter, see what it says. we go. So it says 216. So that 0.58 ohms on the ESR. That's not too bad. But you know, it's an old capacitor. We might as well change them while we're here. Let's put the one that's going in on. Test that. This is a 220, by the way. So here we go. It's 208, which is close to 200, closer than the other one, and 0.27 ohms. So that, yeah, it's going to be better, and it's going to last longer. Give it a new lease of life. So there you go. What I'm going to do now is work my way through the rest of them, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more to do. So do that. Keep it all neat, and then we'll test the radio when it's all been recapped, and then we'll put this on one side and have a look at the case, I think. Okay. So we're just carrying on with this recap, and as you can see, I've sort of worked my way from the top of the board downwards. I've got these 3 left to do here. Just come to this one, which is a 16 UF. And it's a different colour to the. It's a different capacitor brand to these blue ones that were in it. And looking at the underside of the board, I don't know if you can see that. There's massive blobs of fresh solder. So this one has definitely been changed before. Definitely been changed before. So I'm just going to double check that it's the correct one. Even though the set's working, and it is C7, and it is a 16 UF. So at some point in its life, that capacitor's been changed. You can sort of see the soldering isn't that good, to be honest. It's a bit blobby. And I noticed while I was doing it, around here, these wires, the green and the black one, have been touched with a soldering iron right near this capacitor that's been changed. And on the green wire, there's a tiny bit through the insulation of wire showing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to unravel that, chop it off there, and then connect it, which I think is the best way, or put some heat shrink on it, because we don't want bare wires showing when it's isolated. I didn't notice that before. It's been touched with a soldering iron. I've been really careful. I have touched wires before, don't get me wrong, when I'm soldering. In this instance, I've been really careful. I haven't managed to graze any of the wires with soldering. As you can see, I've bent a lot of them out of the way when I'm working, which is a good thing to do, just bend them out of the way. So yeah, we're going to have going to change that one now on these 2. Going to sort this green wire out here. Okay, let's let me just. I've not done this before. I'm looking through a magnifier here just to try and show you this, guys. That capacitor that I think was put in by somebody else. When I lifted it, you can see here, if I lift that, the tracer's actually lifted. And what they'd done is just solder around it, and they'd held the tracer down by bending the capacitor leg over. I don't like that. So this side's okay, where the other leg goes. What I'm going to do is, sorry about the man cave clock going off there. I'm just going to glue that back down and clean all this up before I put the new capacitor in. Not come across other people's work before like that. So hey ho, onwards and upwards. Let's carry on through this magnifier. As you can see, I've re-glued this tracer down now. It's pretty solid now. It's okay. In fact, is it? Oh, there's a bit of wobble there. No, it is solid. It was just the way the light was catching it. It was lifting completely up back here before. So this is the way I'm talking about, that obviously when this capacitor has been changed in the past, it's been caught here and I'm trying to show you this through the magnifier. So there's bare wire showing here. So what I'm going to do is snip it off here and then resolder this bit onto here. So make that a little bit shorter, but I think that's the best way to do it, because you can definitely see bare wire there, and we don't want that. On the black wire there is a little bit of green, but it's, I don't know if you can see it, can you see that? It's obviously come off the green wire onto the black wire, but there's no wire showing on the black. That's totally okay. So yeah, we'll just snip that off and resolder it here. Okay, things you find when you're working on a radio. Hey ho. So there we go. Bit of handheld camera work here. That just so you can see as close up as we can get. There's all the old capacitors out. There's the back of the board. You'll notice that that green wire has one less twist on it now. It's made it shorter where it was it had been hit by a soldering iron in the past. All these wires look okay. Let's flip it over. There's all the new capacitors in, all in place. There's one under there. Oh, looking nice and neat. We've not touched the module because it was working. Don't know if it still works now. Speaker solder back on. Have a close up of the board. So keep it nice and neat. And the old capacitors. That one got a little bit of a plier job to pull it out. I got a bit frustrated with that one. It didn't want to come out. It did eventually. But obviously no damage to the board. Let's pop the camera back in its cradle and let's test it. So we got 10 volts here. Here we go. Positive, negative. Watch out for the smoke. It's off. Let's try medium wave.
With Wick's trademark. Rugged analysis, considered opinions, good reaction. Mid-mornings with Jim White and Natalie Sawyer. Get a first look at all the big breaking...
Okay, let's try long wave.
Task assessment for the next hour.
The next hour, I want you to come up with new ways of thinking about your problem, or in fact where the opportunities might lie.
Now we're also joined by Audie that you heard the tape of earlier today. So if you want to invite Audie into your table to, you know, join your conversations, give you any feedback.
To be fair, it sounds better. Not sure why. Well, it must be the capacitors. It does sound better than before. So thanks for the comments in the previous video, guys. It was worth giving it a service and recapping the main board there. It sounds a lot better, to be fair. So that's it for this video, and thanks for watching again. So you know, I mean, it's humorous in my voice because you know you gotta be serious when you're doing these things. You can't mess about and make a big mess everywhere. Next video will be the case. We'll get onto the case. So as always, thanks for watching, and be good to each other. Catch you in the next one.